Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. We got some more 2A news for you here, and I want to share an op-ed from GOA, and this was written by our own Aiden Johnston, and has to do with the Undetectable Firearms Act. Some pretty interesting stuff. I know that there's a lot of people in the gun community that are into 3D printing and building their own guns and everything like that, and of course, with everything that went on with the frame and receiver rule still in limbo, and of course, 80%ers and things like that. This deals in that kind of territory. So we're going to get into this. Before we do, I would like to thank our friends at CMMG for supporting our videos. If you're looking for anything cutting edge in the AR realm, they are your go-to people. They are the king of weird. They got some awesome bufferless systems. They've got their 22 conversion kits, which are legendary and have held up great over the years. Of course, they are famous for guns like the Anvil and the Mutant, also known as the Mark 47. I still call it the Mutant, but they call it the Mark 47, which is this crazy hybrid system between an AR and an AK that shoots 7.62 by 39. You guys have seen CMMG on a lot of our videos, and a big thanks to them for supporting our efforts. Use the code IV8888 to receive yourself a nice discount if you decide to do business with them, and a big thanks to CMMG for supporting our efforts here on the channel. All right, let's get into this. Biden's frame and receiver rule shows how this statute could be weaponized to outlaw guns with plastic parts. All right, we want to vote no on the Undetectable Firearms Act. Sometimes it takes decades for a poorly drafted anti-gun law to rise up and bite you. The 1968 gun ban for mental defectives sat around for 25 years before an anti-gun Clinton administration decided to use it to disarm more than 250,000 law-abiding veterans who had never been before a court. The Obama administration approved pistol braces, and 40 million of them were manufactured and sold before President Biden decided to ban them. The plastic gun ban is another massive time bomb in federal law. It will be reauthorized permanently in the Senate with the National Defense Authorization Act if Congress doesn't stop it. And again, there's been some information come out where we found gun control, of course, in the National Defense Authorization Act. That's what they're talking about. The background information on this is outdated and ineffective statute. We're going to talk about it. Unless it existed before December 10th, 1988, the plastic gun ban absolutely bans any gun that is not detectable in a walk-through metal detector as a security exemplar. In addition, every major component of every firearm has to pass through an airport X-ray in such a way that its shape is accurately depicted. The security exemplar is a piece of metal that the ATF uses to calibrate how much steel a manufacturer needs to put in the gun to make it beep in a metal detector. Other than the fact that it has to contain 3.7 ounces of steel and look sort of like a gun, anti-gun attorney Merrick Garland can determine by regulatory fiat the characteristics of the exemplar. He can determine whether you test guns with a top-flight metal detector or a crummy one. He can determine how many times or thousands of times a gun has to pass in order not to be banned. Check out our Minuteman moment for more information. Those are great episodes, by the way. Definitely check out GOA's Minuteman moments. Under the frame or receiver rule, more parts fail the major components requirement. The statute contains a list of parts of guns which are definitely major components. By one of the major components is the frame or receiver of the firearm, which the Biden administration recently attempted to redefine to mean any gun part or parts kit. When analyzing ATF's proposed rule, GOA found at least 16 parts on a Glock failing within the proposed definition. If we didn't have a president and an attorney general who have violated and perverted the law again and again and again, gun owners might be able to rest easy. But the language does not protect gun owners against an administrative intent on destroying the Second Amendment. So, what if Attorney General Merrick Garland determines a small plastic gun part is a receiver and therefore an undetectable firearm? Well, it shall be unlawful for any person to manufacture, import, sell, ship, deliver, possess, transfer, or receive the gun to which that part attaches. This statute could be weaponized into a larger gun ban than the Biden pistol ban, which criminalized the possession of up to 40 million pistols. So basically even worse than Biden's pistol ban. This statute's impact on public safety is undetectable. So, good wording, Aiden. For those Republicans who are talking about locking us into a permanent reauthorization of this statute that could ban lots of guns, tell them, please don't. In case they're still unconvinced, here are a few more important points. Public safety fallacy. It is simply not true that if this statute is allowed to lapse, killers can freely go into airports, courthouses, and schools to commit mass murder and mayhem. Myths about X-ray technology. Current technologies like thermal imaging, backscatter X-ray, millimeter wave will pick up the images of plastic guns. So, this outdated ban is a relic that should be tossed into the ash heap of history. Criminals don't obey gun laws. It is foolish to assume that the mass public murderers of the world intent on committing mass murder would somehow be deterred by a plastic gun ban. That genie is already out of the bottle. A permanent reauthorization is dangerous. The Undetectable Firearms Act has always needed reauthorization every few years, and reauthorizing it in permanence eliminates any protections against the statute's weaponization. Ultimately, victory feeds on itself, and defeat feeds on itself. And if Republicans gratuitously give the anti-gunfire left a victory without firing a shot, they will have only succeeded in bringing to life a gun control movement which has, as a chief objective, the destruction of our constitutional liberties. The Undetectable Firearms Act was passed in 1988 in response to no particular threat and has been useless during its 35 years of existence. On behalf of more than 2 million law-abiding gun owners, GOA would ask that you resist any move to reauthorize this unconstitutional legislation. GOA will score any vote in favor of reauthorizing this statute as anti-gun. And of course, you can call the number 202-224-3121 to talk to your senators and tell them to vote no, of course. Good reporting there, Aiden. And I really wanted to share this particular one. I try not to fill your feed up with all kinds of crazy stuff because there's already so many great channels that are just doing all these, sometimes twice a day updates with so many things that are going on. This one jumped out at me as being something important because I know the print community is such a popular community right now. And of course, the first 3D printed or plastic guns, if you will, were put together and conceived almost 20 years ago in terms of self-made, homemade plastic guns. Technology has come a long way, and people have no idea just how good the 3D printing technology is right now. You can come up with some really awesome stuff. There are so many creative people out there, dare I say artists, that are going in there in SolidWorks and drawing up these crazy files and coming up with some really cool stuff. Right? So it's actually, if you look at the past and look at someone like John Browning, okay, what would John Browning do with a 3D printer? I would imagine he'd probably come up with some really crazy stuff. Well, he might not like the material. He might, a plastic piece. What is this, right? But once he understood the strengths and limitations, I guarantee you someone like Browning could do some really cool stuff with 3D printing technology, especially in a mass production perspective. But I digress. The point is, 3D printing is extremely popular, and there's a lot of people out there making some really awesome stuff. I'm talking functional, great-looking guns that are just, in some ways cooler than some of the stuff you can buy through a traditional manufacturer. And I think that's where, the rubber meets the road. That's where the interests kind of lie and almost separate. You've got the mainstream gun community that, obviously, hey, there's nothing wrong with buying a CZ Scorpion or any type of, I'm thinking of other like plastic guns like that, like the X-Tar that we filmed not too long ago. That you might not have seen it by now, but we've got that X-Tar EP9 that is a relatively all plastic gun, right? So there are a lot of mainstream firearms companies that make plastic guns. I mean, look at Glock, they're pretty much the innovators of the polymer mass-produced pistol, if you will. Right, so it's not that polymer is an inferior material to make a firearms part out of or anything like that. It's just interesting to see the DIY community, of course, always takes a concept and runs with it. And that innovation and that amount of artistry when it comes to coming up with these really cool gun designs, I don't think that's something that we should ever, stop. We shouldn't, put a stop in creativity. Like it's just. We've always had the ability to make our own firearms from even before the Second Amendment even existed. As long as we've been a country, people have been able to make their own firearms. So this is a terrible idea, and let's hope, of course, they're looking at, again, just to remind you, a permanent reauthorization in the National Defense Authorization Act to leave this particular piece of legislation pretty much permanent. As it said in the article, it has to be reauthorized every few years. They're wanting to make it permanent. So this is a dangerous situation. You should definitely contact your reps and tell them, heck no, we don't want anything to do with this, and to nuke it from the National Defense Authorization Act as soon as possible. So thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought this was an interesting little piece to share because their hypocrisy knows no bounds. They will always look for every little way they can to infringe on the constitutional rights of the citizens at large. We can't allow them to do it. We have to keep our eyes open and think 3 or 4 steps ahead like a chess game. We can't be playing checkers here. We have to be strategic. So thank you so much for tuning in. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.